Hey guys, is this gonna stay? You know what? I'm gonna put my blinds up. Hold on. There we go. I am finally not, it's probably gonna come back to bite me in the ass, but I'm not worried about storage because I just cleared a bunch of storage out on my phone. And I should have like 10 gigabytes, so if this cuts off, I'm gonna be a little upset. But yeah, I say this every time, but I actually did film a video and it cut off in like the middle of it, and I was like, you know what, F that, and I just deleted it. But I'm kind of glad that I did, because I have some new insights to share about EMDR in the process. So yeah, today, and again, I don't really know, this is probably gonna be long, and it's gonna be all over the place, and I'm probably gonna take breaks, and I'm probably not gonna edit it, so yeah, it's gonna be a little bit messy. And also, I want to say I'm actually surprised, I've said this before too, I'm like surprised at the number of people who watch these videos. I would expect like maybe 10 views, but they've been getting like, some of them are like up to the 90s and like 100, like they tend to plateau there, or it's some, I don't know, some of them hang out in like the 40s. But still, that's like way higher than I thought, and I don't know why exactly, but I appreciate it. And hopefully it's not like people hate watching me, like hopefully it's like genuinely people who are getting something out of it. I don't know, I guess I'll never know. But yeah, so anyways, EMDR, well actually, well, my dad's, hope he can't hear me because that's embarrassing. He makes fun of me for everything. Not like in a bad way, that's just, we like tease each other a lot. He's like where I get my sense of humor from. Even though we're very different too in that way, in a lot of ways, but yeah. What was I gonna say? EMDR, oh, meds. Yeah, so I always kind of share my journey with medication too, because I don't know, I just started doing it, so I guess I'm not gonna stop. I started Trintellix. I'm saying it wrong probably either way. But I started a new medication like 4 weeks ago, almost exact, or no, it is exactly, because nope, September is up now, so it doesn't say. But yeah, I started Trintellix like a month ago and haven't seen any effects yet. I felt a little nauseous at first. For those of you who don't know, Trintellix is used to treat, primarily it's used to like treat major depressive disorder, MDD. I don't have that, but it's, I don't know, my psychiatrist is like using it off label to try and help with like the symptoms that I've been having. So yeah, and I haven't felt anything really. But I've only been on 5 milligrams, and that's like pretty low. And I think he said in an email today that he wants me to get up to 20. But for now, we're just bumping up to 10 and seeing how that goes. And I honestly feel like okay right now, like without medication. I stopped Prozac, by the way, which I think I mentioned. But yeah, I just know that like EMDR has already been kind of kicking me in the ass, and I feel like having that extra boost would be really nice. So, and two, like, whenever I get off medication, it's funny, I, like, really don't want to get back on it again, for no other reason than I would just, like, love to not be on meds, because and it's not because of even, like, the stigma, it's just because, I don't know, I get scared of, like, becoming dependent on it and then hitting a threshold, and then it's like, what do you do now? So, yeah. But also, some people are on meds for the whole life and it works well, so. And if I'm one of those people, I'm completely fine with that. Like, if I can find a medication that works and it doesn't cause, like, any long-term problems, like, sign me up, because, I don't know, it's, you know, it's a very small price to pay, like, taking a pill every day for, you know, good mental health. But yeah, so that's where that stands. What else was I gonna say? I guess that's everything for med stuff, but EMDR, back to that. I don't really remember like the last vlog I filmed, like when it would have been. Oh, actually yes I do. It was before my trauma anniversary. which, I don't know, I was gonna say stuff about that, but I don't really feel like I have anything to say. So yeah, but that was, what, like Thursday, like 2 weeks ago, something like that. And sorry, I'm just trying to find my train of thought, like what I'm gonna talk about, because I should really write this shit down. I don't. But yeah, I guess, okay, I'll talk about that session. So I meet weekly with my therapist, either Monday or Tuesday. And so, last Monday, August 28th, because it was the day before my trauma anniversary, I had a meeting with my therapist, and one big thing we've been trying to work on is shame, because I have a lot of that and I didn't even realize it. Because for a really long time, and like this is still something that I struggle with, I just assumed that I was like defective and different from everybody else. And it's funny because, like, and I think I've said this before, I would read stories where people would talk about how they felt broken, or that they're the only one feeling that way. And I don't know if it was just like cognitive dissonance, but I was like, nope, that's not me. Because I assumed, I was so convinced that like it was just true that I was defective and that I was different, that like it wasn't even something that I could change. It was just like a fact of life that like when people would talk about that stuff, I didn't even identify with it, because I was like, no, you felt that way, I actually am that way. And I didn't know that was shame until my therapist was like, hey, that's shame. And I was like, oh, there's a word for that. So yeah, that's been something that we've been working on a lot. And I think my mom's gonna come into my room. Maybe not. I hope not. That happened one time. Yeah. Which, by the way, that like clicking noise you hear, it's this book, which I'm gonna show you guys. It's the Mod Podge. I like Mod Podge the hell out of it, and yeah, that's why it's like crinkling. But yeah, so we've been working on undoing that, because I think that's honestly where like a lot of probably depression and anxiety, more so or I don't know, like that is where a lot of my issues have stemmed from, is just like these different negative beliefs that I've held about myself that I've never even bothered to challenge, because I didn't even think that was a possibility. And that's kind of been like a running theme with therapy this time around, is just like bringing up stuff that I've never brought up before, just because A, I was either embarrassed, or B, I literally just thought I had to live with it. Like I didn't think it was something that it could be changed, and so I was like, you know, what's the point of even bringing this up? So yeah, back to shame. What was I saying? Sorry, it's gonna be all over the place, guys. Damn. Oh, actually, okay. So anyways, at the end of that session, we tried an exercise, and like I've said before, we haven't done any of the actual like reprocessing yet, but we have been doing exercises with bilateral stimulation. And so she had me put the headphones on because I listened to like the audio, and I closed my eyes, and one of the things that you do in EMDR is you tap in like good memories and good feelings, because, sorry, I thought I was gonna yawn or something, it makes them stronger. And so she was like, I want you to think of a time where you actually felt good. And I could think of one memory, and it was when I was in 3rd grade. And she was like, okay, now pull that up. And so I like pulled up the memory, and it was funny because it felt like I was like looking at it through a telescope, which was like a very unique feeling. And I don't know if that makes sense at all, but it was there, but it was just like kind of foggy. And then as like I kept tapping and I kept focusing, I was able to get further into that and get closer to it. But then at a certain point I got like stuck on a certain imagery, and it wasn't that it was like super significant, I just couldn't move further into that memory. And then she said something, I can't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of like, give yourself permission to like feel good, like something like that. And so I imagined, because we've been doing parts work, and I imagined that like the fog person, like the little like inner child me, like passing the baton off to her and being like, hey, you take this and run with it, because like that was the child that like experienced that memory I was trying to tap into. And when that happened, I was like actually able to like go into the memory further. It was okay, it was just a very weird moment. But anyways, so yeah, I was getting into the memory further, and then I hit like another roadblock because for whatever reason, I didn't want to like, because they ask you, okay, sorry, I'm like really bad at telling stories, but when you're doing this process, like they won't guide you, but they check in, because like, at least my therapist told me, like the belief is like your brain knows where it needs to go, and like from my own experience, that's been true. And so she'll be like, okay, what are you noticing now? And then I'll tell her, and then she'll be like, okay, let's go with that. And that kind of functions as like grounding you back in the present, because it can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. And it's funny because when I was getting further into that memory, and it wasn't a traumatic one, it was a good one, I could like feel myself getting anxious, and it almost kind of feels like my body was like shutting down, and she was like asking me to tell her what was going on, and I struggled to, because it was a memory that showed me in a good light, and I felt like I couldn't, like, I didn't want to talk about that, I guess. Like I didn't want to, like, it just, there was such a resistance in like recalling something that like made me look good. Don't know why that is. But yeah, and then I was trying really hard not to cry like throughout well, not all of it, when I like got further into the memory, jumping ahead a little bit. But I finally got it out. And then as I was like going through the memory, it felt, okay, I have a drawing for this. This is what I have my montage book for. Which I feel kind of bad because it's the Goldfinch, and I had a former teacher who like recommended I read it, and so I was like, heck yeah, and I ordered it, and I got like 40 pages in. It was actually good, but I have not a super great attention span, and then I stopped reading it, and then I put it away, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna draw on this now. And so I've been like making art out of it, and now I can't read it anymore, but I don't know, it's served a different purpose, I guess. But yeah, so when I was getting into the memory, it felt like this like gold yellow like rush of goodness. Like it was like if my child self, like my pure child self, was like liquefied, and it felt like it was just like going over my whole entire body. And for the first time, I think in my life, like I was able to see myself as other people had like described me as like when they've described me as like a good person. And that was just like the most, it was so weird. Like I've never experienced anything like that. And this is what it felt like. And jump scare, because this is kind of scary. I'm not a good illustrator, I'm sorry. I'm more of a photography gal. But that's what the shame felt like. Just felt like my body turned to lead. And just kind of like very painful and like resistant. But that's like what the goodness felt like. It was just like going over my body, and it was yeah, it was wild. And then after that, my brain jumped to a different memory when I was a little bit older, where I also felt good, and then it jumped to another one when I was a bit older, where I also felt good. And it's interesting because they say that your brain, like with EMDR, like it'll bring up similar memories. Like you won't just like process one memory or one feeling. You'll process, when you do process one, like it like processes all like the different kind of memories and feelings that are like connected to that, if that makes sense. I don't know, there's a better way to explain that. But it was just interesting to like see that in real time, how my brain like had this network of memories where I felt that way, and it jumped to all of them on its own. Because those were not memories that like I brought up for that initial exercise, because I could only think of that one. But yeah, that was really cool. And the kind of shitty part was that I got to experience that. It was very groundbreaking. It was definitely a breakthrough. But I didn't get to like bring it back with me. Like I was there, I experienced that, and then when I came back, in reality, it wasn't like not in reality, but like when we were done the exercise, like I definitely felt better that night, but it wasn't like my shame disappeared. But it was definitely like an eye-opener, because I was like, oh, I actually can feel different about myself. Like there is a version of me that exists that like doesn't carry this weight around. And so that was pretty cool. And then the next day, and this was really interesting too, and this is something that a lot of people have described, I was like completely exhausted, like napped multiple times. And that's something that they've described as like an EMDR hangover, they call them, which is like so fascinating how like doing the mental work in your brain, because like that stuff is very much stored in your body. You see it in like physical effects in your body. And yeah, it's just like, it's weird seeing, I don't know, it's just like, it's kind of insane. It's like one of those things where like, I mean, not that I didn't believe it, but like to experience it firsthand is really weird, in a good way. But what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and the other thing that I'm experiencing is my eye twitches now. Like I've been having a bunch of like different, I can feel stuff more in my body now, which actually I'm gonna touch on that. That was the other thing I wanted to talk about. And especially like after sessions, sometimes I'll notice like when I'm trying to fall asleep, like my body's aching, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my body will be aching. And again, it's just like weird to like feel that stuff now, and just knowing it was like trapped energy essentially. So yeah, and other thing that I look forward to is like down the line, because EMDR, there's kind of, it works, like it's like empirically proven. It's recommended by the I think it's the CDC, or I don't know, some government something, like as a leading treatment for like PTSD veterans. So it's real and it works, and like there's a ton of personal anecdotes as well as like scientific evidence that'll tell you that. But they still don't really know why it works exactly. And I think it's really interesting, like down the line, once, you know, there's more research on it, and, you know, maybe we have like better technology that can help us like further understand how our brain works, just seeing why EMDR actually works, and like the relationship, just understanding the relationship between like the brain and the body more. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, that's pretty much what EMDR has been like, last night, or no, not last night, I think it was Tuesday I had my session. Didn't experience any breakthroughs. We did another exercise, but it wasn't as like successful. I was trying to tap in joy and I couldn't feel joy. Which I don't know, I have theories why, but that's not to say that I haven't been like better though. I don't feel like that bad, but yeah, it's okay. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place and I'm bad at transitions, but one thing I can say is like, and I don't know how long this has been here now, but lately it feels like I've been walking around like with this ache in my chest, and I'm starting to think that like maybe that's just a physical manifestation of like all the emotional shit from like I guess not even the past 3 years, like the past like 20 years, just finally being able to feel it in my chest. And it's funny, and I just had this epiphany today, but for like a really long time I was trying to come up with like some kind of metaphor or analogy to like explain how I was feeling. And when I was talking about it with my friend, I just had like this epiphany of like, oh, it's just pain. Like that's just the most simple yet most concise and accurate way to describe it, is like literally just pain. It just feels like pain. Like a mix of, I don't even know if it's like, I guess I could call it a little bit physically painful, but it's more just like, yeah, this weight in your chest. And actually upon realizing that made me feel a bit better, because pain goes away and it can be dealt with. Whereas before, back to like thinking about shame, I was like, oh God, this is like, I am the ache. Like, holy shit, I'm just like, this is what it's like for me to be human. And yeah, I was kind of getting stressed out about that. But now and especially after talking with my friend who was like, literally, I think an angel actually, like sent from whatever's out there, because they went through EMDR. And I've said this before, this is my friend Abby, who like, has experienced like pretty much, we've had like very similar journeys, but they're like they've like already gone through EMDR, is like doing great now. And so every time I like am feeling something that I feel like I need to talk about, or I'm scared no one else can resonate with, I talk to Abby and they're always like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm like, holy shit, thank God. Because yeah, it can be kind of lonely, some of this stuff. But yeah, I guess that's everything. It's not as long as I thought it was gonna be. Yeah, I have hope that it's gonna get better. It definitely sucks right now, and I actually was thinking, this was something I was thinking about more like yesterday and earlier today. I was like, should I be doing this right now? Like, should I just like throw the towel in on EMDR? And I don't know, because I was doing good in June. I was doing really good, and I genuinely was like changing and healing in different ways. Like I was getting into mindfulness and stuff, and I've kind of more recently started to get back into that because I was like, you know what, that was helping, and I should, you know, that'll help me now too. But I was genuinely thinking like, should I stop EMDR and just try to do that again? And then I realized that like that wouldn't really resolve like the deep-seated issues. And now, and kind of what this journey has felt like is like digging all this like shit out of your chest that's never seen the light of day. And again, talking about things that I've never talked about before, fears that I've never wanted to acknowledge because I don't want to make them more real, stuff like that. And yeah, it's definitely scary, and it's hard because I'm still in like the middle of the tunnel right now. Probably even the beginning. Oh God. So I can't like tell you what it's like on the other side. But I do have hope that there is another side, even though I feel kind of shitty right now. I have no idea what it's gonna look like. But I don't know, I'm hoping that it's worth it. I go back a lot to that sign that I saw a couple, I guess it was like 2 months ago now, when I was driving in July with my friend Abby again. And we were actually just talking about this today, but the sign that said, when I was like in my car and I was like, I need a sign from the universe to like stick around because this is fucking painful. And 10 minutes later we were driving and I looked up and I saw the sticker on the car in front of us. It said, if you're looking for a sign to stay alive, this is it. And I was like, well, okay. And it's funny how like much, I don't know, how much comfort and like strength I pulled from that. Because it was like, oh, okay, like something is definitely, like that was kind of one of those moments where I was like, okay, I can't deny that something is out there. And maybe it is a coincidence, I don't know, but I've chosen to believe that that's not the case. And it's nice to know that like something thinks that I should be here, even though it's really hard sometimes because it just feels kind of painful. And like having like dealt with mental health issues for such a long time, I'm like, holy shit, I hope my whole life is not like this because ow, it hurts. But again, I don't think it's going to be. Like I think you really can like find a way to live. Like I really think that that's possible, and I know that's not super profound. Like that's gotta be the most vague thing I've ever said. But yeah, I think it's doable. It's hard, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like I'm always motivated all the time, but I don't know, keep going and you keep growing and it gets easier. It's like one of my favorite quotes from BoJack Horseman that I keep going back to is, I think it's in season 2, when BoJack is like jogging up the hill and he lays down on the grass, and then this like other character stands over him and he's like, it gets easier, you gotta do it every day, but it does get easier. And I like to think that that's true. But yeah, it is hard, I'm not gonna lie, it's been hard. But you know, one day at a time. So sorry, I'm looking at the street light outside. It's a pretty view. I think I'm gonna go play Sims and maybe make some popcorn, but thanks for tuning in and have a good night and stick with it. Whatever journey you're on, it'll get better.